What's going on, everybody? Welcome into 104.3 The Fans Postgame Live. It's Dmac, Rachel VL hanging out with you as the Broncos lose to the Tennessee Titans 17-10. An absolute meltdown in the second half. Dmac, I don't even know where to begin because obviously a lot has to change. But is it officially just time to cut ties and look in a different direction when it comes to coaching, play calling, etc.?
I don't know about that. I thought, listen, more or less this happened the way I thought it was going to happen for the Broncos, although the 10-0 lead would certainly give you, an indication that perhaps something good will happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we thought this would be a low-scoring, one-score game. It could kind of go either way. I predicted 19-13 Titans. I don't know. Where were you at? What did you
I selected the Titans too. I was going more like 21-10 for the Titans, actually. I thought that Derrick Henry was going to do a lot more than he did, so we have to give props to the Broncos defense there. But, I mean, everything else, what happened? It's just Crumble Town out there.
Crumble Town.
Crumble Town.
Are those cookies, or is that actually a collapse? What is that?
That's Rachel? An absolute collapse because I couldn't be disrespectful to Crumble cookies in that manner. They should have no relation to the Denver Broncos with what we saw.
Crumble Town, I love it. We have some crazy things going on in the NFL too, and I'm sure we'll cover it all. But the Vikings-Bills game right now is one of the most bananas games you'll ever see. We'll get to that. The Broncos game, listen, it's oh, geez, Rach, what do we want to say here? Am I surprised? I can't say I'm surprised. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And in terms of changes, no, I don't see any changes. I think it makes the game against the Raiders a very make-or-break game. I think you could see some significant changes in that.
This was the make-or-break game.
No.
And they failed.
Why was this the make-or-break game?
Jake, give me the back end. What's the playoff percentage? I think it's like 2%.
that. Oh, okay. Sorry. I forgot people still thought the Broncos were going to make the playoffs. My bad. My bad.
I mean, how could you say this wasn't the make or break? Eventually, this team's going to give up on Nathaniel Hackett. And the second they do that, I mean, this locker room is going to absolutely lose it. The second they do that, and then they go against Russell Wilson because he was supposed to be the savior here in Denver, things are going to get dirty, and they're going to get dirty fast.
Well, listen, here's what they wanted to be better with, Rachel. They wanted to stop Derrick Henry, right? So you did that. You did do that today. Derrick Henry had, 19 carries for 53 yards. Complete non-factor, okay? The defense limited Tennessee on the road to 17 points. Pretty good overall. They got stung by a flea flicker, which is embarrassing because guys are literally tripping all over each other. But I mean, this is another game of just complete ineptitude by the offense. And I don't think Russell Wilson played that bad, but he got sacked, Rachel, 6 times. They lost Graham Glasgow early. You're playing Quinn Bailey at right tackle who hasn't played. You're just a mess up front. I'm not really inclined to hammer Russell Wilson for this one. I mean, he was running around there like a chicken with his head cut off. I mean, you didn't have an offensive line today. You had no offensive line. And then your rushing was 25 carries for 65 yards as a team. Nobody could get anything going. You lost Jerry Jeudy, and who knows how long that injury is going to be for. Listen, it wasn't good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it was good by any stretch, but there are some crazy mitigating circumstances here for a team that is beat up, not that good to begin with, and then couldn't hold on to the lead because, look, Rachel, they punted. What did they punt? 9 times. 9 punts. They were 4 for 15 on third, 4 for 17. Rachel, my goodness, 4 for 17 on third down? 4 for 17.
Really, if you think about it, the 66-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Virgil, otherwise the Broncos really didn't move the ball at all. At all.
Well, you didn't convert. You had 18 first downs. The Titans only had 14 first downs. It's not like the Titans were very good either. No. So in a one-score game, and then you did have the ball at the end of the game, and Russell Wilson, couldn't get it done. He couldn't get it done because there was just this ridiculous pressure on him. I mean, I don't know, man. This one, I'm not even upset with Russell Wilson on this one. I'm not. The offensive line was about as abysmal as you could imagine. I don't know really offensively how else you could look at it. I mean, we'll see later on total pressures. Hold on. Let me see if we can get that here. But pass defend, quarterback hits. Yeah, Rachel, look at this. 18 quarterback hits for Tennessee. 18 quarterback hits. 9 tackles for a loss. 6 sacks. Mm-hmm. Holy cow.
Yep.
It's the offensive line. I mean, if they're going to do anything, you got to just fire Butch Barry, the offensive line coach. I mean, do something. Make somebody accountable. That was abysmal. 18 quarterback hits. Holy cow. Let's see how many quarterback hits the Broncos had. They had 4, Rachel. Four. So 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 sack. Okay, mm-hmm. Rachel, that is crazy. That's what the Broncos D did. Again, let me repeat that. 4 quarterback hits, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 sack. The Titans on Russell Wilson, 18 quarterback hits, 9 tackles for a loss, and 6 sacks. Come on, that's on the offensive line, man. That is offensive line incompetence to like this ridiculous degree.
Okay, so it's injuries. That's played the major part of this. And so It's really hard to put injuries on anybody. But the main question is, and a lot of people are going to have this conversations this week, is it what went on during training camp? Is it what went on in the offseason? Is it the trainers? Why are there so many injuries for this team?
I don't know. That's a great question, Rach. Cam Fleming didn't get the start. Billy Turner got hurt. So you got Quinn Bailey, who was just activated. I don't know if Wattenberg has had more than a couple of snaps with Russell Wilson.
I actually felt really bad for him.
Ever. And there was one it was a bad snap, kind of went to the right a little bit. I don't know. And that was a mess. And no, I'm not upset with Russell Wilson on this one. He's 21 of 42. He actually was all right. Sort of.
He went for the run to try and keep the play alive during the last couple of seconds.
Rachel, he ran 7 times. He only got 8 yards, but we said he's got to at least try. He's got to get out there. I mean, 7 carries. All right. I mean, he was trying. Golly, 4 for 17. And those defensive numbers for Tennessee, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it, especially when you compare with the Broncos defense, who actually played pretty well. Broncos defense did all right. Golly, Rach. That is wild. But they only got 1 sack of Tannehill and only a couple of tackles for a loss. So I mean, it's not like the Titans played that great. They had 8 punts themselves. Mm-hmm. Ryan Stonehouse from CSU did a good job. I don't know, man. This was a organizational mess up front on the offensive line.
I agree. A lot of the blame has to be put there. We do have the stats, though, but things weren't always super clean either when you look at the penalties for this team.
Oh, no.
Actually, I guess they had less than the Titans did by 10.
Yeah, but and you see how long they controlled the ball. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Wow, that's actually remarkable how similar those numbers actually are. Look at that. And you know what? Oh, well, we don't have the right score there, but I mean, 17-10. And but overall, it's very similar. Mm-hmm. It's not all that different. And it did come down to that last drive. And last week, Rachel, on the last drive, they got a touchdown, won the game. Yep. This week they couldn't get a touchdown and they lose the game. So, it's not like the games were all that different.
Here's the thing. This offensive line isn't getting any better in the next upcoming weeks. The Raiders and the Panthers. I'm worried that if they don't get any help, I mean, they may not move the ball at all for the next couple of weeks, Dmac. There's no return set time for anyone on this offensive line, especially with a lot of the injuries just coming today. Literally, they may not move the ball against the Raiders next week.
Yeah, they're a team in a world of hurt, a world of suck, as Emmanuel Sanders said years ago, because what did Cortland Sutton even have? He caught like 2 passes, something like that. What do you have today?
Cortland Sutton
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Six catches. All right,
Yeah.
he was all right on 10 targets. Losing Judy, not having Hamler. I mean, that is just, God, that is just rough. I mean, 286 passing yards. I mean, thank God for Jalen. Thank God for Jalen Virgil, right? Like, what if you didn't have that moment? Jalen Virgil, his first NFL catch is a 66-yard touchdown.
I know. I seriously, I don't know. Okay. Broncos dropped to 14.5 points per game, which is again makes them the lowest scoring offense in the NFL this season. And they have Russell Wilson, a $245 million quarterback. And again, Dmac, you and I are both on the same page where we really can't put a whole lot of blame. I actually didn't think Russell Wilson had too great of a first half. Seemed like he was like throwing balls super low on receivers, making some questionable decisions. But the second half, I'm with you. The offensive line, he had nothing. He had no choice. He just had to run for it. So Broncos second half drives, punt, game-ending interception.
Wow, that's
brutal. We're not going to put any of the blame here on Russell Wilson for the second half. It's going on the offensive line. But then who's the blame for there? You have to give it to someone, right?
You got to blame somebody.
Why aren't people ready to be able to step up? Why isn't Luke Wattenberg ready to step up if he needs to be? I mean, we've seen the injuries come time and time again. It's not like they went through 5 centers in 24 hours.
Well, we're down to our third center. We're down to probably our third right tackle. We're down to our second left tackle with a guy, Calvin Anderson, who is basically benched, during the season for Cam Fleming. You got Dalton Reisner, who's dealing with like a back injury. He's not really been himself. And even Quinn Minor's got a penalty today, his first one of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not trying to let anybody off the hook. But having to deal with that many issues, that many backups. I know the cliche is next man up, but goodness, I mean, we got 2 guys in Quinn Bailey and Luke Wattenberg out there near the end of the game that just have really seriously not played football this entire year. And Calvin Anderson is he started as a starter in camp and he just washed out, and they really just kept him around as a security blanket, Rachel. It just is brutal. So who do you blame? It's hard to blame people when you have these many injuries.
But why are there so many injuries? And why, knowing that you've been going through so many injuries, are players like Luke Wattenberg not ready to step up? So the fact that they're Russell Wilson, I think, mishandled the ball like 4 times in a row after Luke went in.
Yeah, I'm sure I'd have to go back and count it. I'm going to assume you're right about that. I mean, it just felt like it's
like a disaster. But
I remember a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, in my high school, as I can look out there, Smoky Hill High School. And we had this quarterback, Cameron, who's a really nice guy, but they had no offensive line. And I would go to these games to support, the old high school. And as soon as the ball was snapped to him, it's like somebody was in his face. And at the end of the day, you just felt bad for him. Like you wanted to give him a hug. And I think they won 1 game that year. But Rachel, it was a joke. They'd snap the ball and shoot. It was right there. And that's what I felt like I was watching today. I was having flashbacks of my guy Cameron at Smoky Hill High School a decade ago with just no chance. I mean, literally no chance. So I'm not sure who to blame when it's such a disaster. You had to have something miraculous happen today. You had to have the defense have like a pick 6 or something else, and that they just didn't get it.
I know. I was waiting for it when they got that fumble. Speaking of, what the heck were the Titans even doing on that play? Why even put Malik Willis in? But it was like,
and I tweeted that out. Thank God the Titans are so stupid. I mean, they kept the Broncos in the game. they took out it was like a fourth down or something and 3, and they take out Derrick Henry for another running back and hand the other running back the ball. It's like, if you're going to hand the ball to anybody, just hand it to Derrick Henry. I know he had run the play before, but I mean, so what? I just I don't know. I don't know what to say, Rachel. It's unexplainable. Unexplainable. But this is what's terrible. And I don't know if you caught it, but the Lions beat the Bears.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields threw a terrible pick 6. And so the Lions are feeling themselves. They won a couple games. We'll see what the Colts are like with Jeff Saturday and the Raiders.
I'm actually very excited for that.
Well, the Broncos may be the worst team in the league. I mean, they may be the worst team in the league. And we'll have to watch what happens with the Colts and the Raiders. And how did the Jaguars do? I assume I don't know.
They made a slight comeback, but I think they lost by a final score of 10. I think it was 27-17. Dmac, here's the thing, though, again, that this offensive line, if no one comes back, they may literally not move the ball against the Raiders, meaning, yes, they are the worst team in the NFL. Because if they can't get a first down, what are we going to watch for 60 minutes?
I don't know. I don't know. You got Russell Wilson hit 18 times a day, 9 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks. You don't have a team. I mean, you don't have an offense at all. You don't have you can't fix that. There's nothing. There's nothing to fix.
You can't. Okay, well, we have to figure out what the head coach Nathaniel Hackett had to say as we bring in James Merrilat.
What would he say? What in the world would he say?
That's what I don't know. There's no answers when it comes to injuries, and that's what I think makes this so frustrating. James, how was Hackett? What did he have to say?
He was, glum Nate. He was down. He wasn't cracking jokes. But the over and over and over and over again theme was, got to be better on third down. Got to be better on third down. All right. Yeah, you were 4 for 17 on third down. But the problem is it's 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12 every time. Like, you're going to go 4 out of 17 when it's that. I mean, how many times did they have 3rd and 2 today? I'm having a hard time off the top of my head remembering one. I'm sure there were a handful, but it was over and over again. 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11. He said, hey, I've got to hold everybody accountable. How? What's the accountability? Right? Like, what are we doing? And then it was, we're teachers. I'll tell you what, if they're teachers, if you're sending your kids to that school, it's time to transfer them somewhere else because they're a disaster.
Well, James, what did he say about the offensive line?
He didn't address it. I mean, they asked him about him getting hit. I think they said 16. You said 18. I think you're right, Dmac. I think it was 18.
I'm just reading the stats from ESPN, so whatever. I mean,
whatever it was, right? It's in the high teens of him getting hit. And, let's say we got to do better. Well, no blank, you got to do better. But I don't want to hear the injury excuse. And I get it. It was a hodgepodge. But this team sucked week 1, and they had everybody healthy. And they had everybody week 2, and they had everybody week 3, and they were awful. So now that injuries have hit, I don't want to hear the excuse. If they scored 30 against the Niners, then we could sit here and say, oh, you know what, man, when they're healthy, they're pretty good. When they got Javonte and they got Cush and they got Bolsey, they're pretty good. No, they aren't. They're terrible offensively. They had 2 weeks to fix it. Was anything better today? One thing.
No, actually, the games were actually pretty similar. They both came down to the last drive, and on this time, the last drive, the Broncos couldn't connect, and last week they did connect. And hey, listen, I understand what you're saying about the injuries, but the injuries are a real thing here. And listen, they weren't good to begin with. So you take a team that's not all that good, and then they get all beat up, and people said it couldn't get any worse, and I said, yeah. A couple weeks ago, can't get any worse. I'm like, sure it can. Of course it can. And we'll see with the Raiders and the Colts. And I understand, are the Colts actually winning that game to start with? But I don't know. Like, let me point something out. A lot of people are going to say, oh, Justin Fields, he's, whatever. Justin Fields, for the 4th game in a row, led his team to 30 points. He made a terrible mistake in a pick 6. Their defense is bad. But the Chicago Bears, despite being 3-7, okay, 3-7, Justin Fields and the Bears were 6 for 11 on third down. 6 for 11. They've got some problems on the defense, and that's why they're losing games. But at least they have an offense that's producing something. And the question is, well, what would you rather have? And it just goes to show you, your defense can be the greatest thing since sliced bread. It doesn't matter if you can't score points in the NFL. It really doesn't matter. So I guarantee you the Bears will get better quicker than the Broncos. You know, it's bad for both teams. But when you can convert third downs, you give yourself a shot. 4 for 17, 18 quarterback hits, 9 tackles for a loss, 6 sacks. If it wasn't for a virtual lucky play, the Broncos have 3 points maybe in this game.
Well, you're right. I mean, they had the one play. That was essentially all they did all day. Although when we were talking at halftime, Rachel, it was like they had 100 more yards than the Titans. They had a couple of yards in the first half. They don't get anything for it. They don't. It's just they're these totally hollow yards. It just doesn't produce anything. The second half was just a disaster. It's largely been a disaster all season long, right? We've sat down on halftime chill and talked about Russell Wilson going 11-12 in the first half against the Raiders. Things are looking good. It falls apart. It's the same old, same old. Russell Wilson is going to take the heat for today. He's going to. And I get it when you a $250 million guy, but he did a really nice job today, I thought, of buying some time. There's nobody open. Nobody gets open. It'll be fascinating to watch the all 22 and watch how little separation they get. And it seemed like every time they finally panned downfield, it was Kendall Hinton and Tyree Cleveland. Like, that's who you're trying to win the game with. And you came in, we're going to throw the ball all over. Once Jerry Jeudy went down, then adjust. Like, that wasn't going to work. Cortland Sutton gets no separation. Kendall Hinton is you can pick up every team has 2 Kendall Hintons on their practice squad. He's just a guy. Tyree Cleveland, hey, special teams ace. I finally noticed the special teams play from Tyree Cleveland today. It was a penalty. Guy never makes a play, but he's a special teams ace. This cast of weapons is ridiculous. But don't get up there and tell me about accountability and then have Melvin Gordon play half the snaps. I don't want to hear it.
When I asked Stooks about accountability and challenged him on special teams, his answer was, well, what do you want me to do? I can't bench a core guy. And I'm like, well, what does accountability mean then? I have no clue what it actually means. You can't even define what it is.
Well, so if Kendall Hinton is a core guy on your kick coverage, who the heck is Kendall Hinton going to tackle? Right? You can't bench him.
Listen, there's a lot of Kendall Hinton.
By the way, the Titans were terrible today too. They sucked today. They weren't any good.
If I told you that Derrick Henry was going to rush for 53 yards on 19 carries, you'd have said the Broncos win easily. You would have. Ryan Tannehill he actually had a pretty good day. They let him get going a little bit on that last drive in the first half. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, essentially they had that drive and they had one play. They had the flea flicker. That was it.
Here's what happens. As good as the Broncos defense plays, listen, man, they get worn down when you're just spending that much time. And the Titans were getting worn down too. You know, you just wear out your defenses. I mean, Russell Wilson's going to be sore. I don't rag on Russell Wilson at all today. I give him he tried. I mean, the dude
$245 million quarterback. He tried.
I guess I feel silly. I don't know how else to put it. Like,
we've gotten a good try, good effort. That's what we've gotten to. Remember the little
try. Come here. Good try.
Good try, good effort.
Good try.
Well, but here's the other thing, and I was optimistic because we hadn't had Nathaniel Hackett. Well, I'll tell you why.
Okay.
It was a bunch of one-score games. I felt like it was law of averages, and I tried to give Nathaniel Hackett the benefit of the doubt, right? Of you haven't had a bye week. You've had this weird schedule you keep telling us about. Fine. You got 2 weeks to fix it. If they'd have fixed it today and they win that game, we're on here talking about a 4-5 team. We're saying the Raiders stink. The Panthers stink. They're going to be above 500. They didn't fix anything. They did nothing in 2 weeks, not a single thing. The best drive they had in the second half was the last drive when they had to go up tempo. They didn't go up tempo once. The one thing that worked in London, they didn't do it one time today. Nathaniel Hackett is in over his head, and now it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of, does Greg Penner do it now? Does he do it in 3 weeks? Does he do it at the end of the year? Because this is not working. And how on earth are you going to sell the team and the fan base on bringing it all back and doing it again next year with Nathaniel Hackett? You can't. You just can't.
Oh, man, James, as always, we appreciate you hopping in with us to share what Nathaniel Hackett had to say. Tough. I wish we would get more of a real answer and a frustration out of him, but maybe we'll see.
But there's nothing else for him to say. James is right on that. He is in way over his head at this point. He has no.
But I want him to go out there and he'd be like, this is completely unacceptable. But it's not. It's just like this fluff disappointment. We don't care about that anymore. Broncos country is pissed. Do you want to see the comment section on our postgame show right now?
Oh, but it's over. James is right. It's over. You get to play perhaps a worse team in the Raiders next week. But, this Greg Penner's got to do something now. Now Greg Penner's got to do something. Greg, he was sold for the sunshine blown up Greg Penner's butt by George Payton. He must be able to bolt a ray of sunshine out of his mouth when he opens his yap. I mean, he was just exaggerated to on a bunch of stuff. Like, oh, it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and it's going to be the other thing. People like us who have been watching this thing closely for years, we knew that, well, James, I got to give you credit. You were an optimist. You were trying to be optimistic about stuff. But I really don't understand why.
Well, here's why. Today's an example of it. Like, this is going to be hard to believe, guys. First downs, Broncos had more. Total yards, Broncos had more. Total plays, Broncos had 73-60. Broncos threw for more yards. They rushed for more yards. They had less penalties, and they won the time of possession. They won every statistical category. Every single one of them, except for third down. They won every statistical category, scored 10 points, and lost the game. How in the world do you do that? How do you do that?
I can tell you, James, you're leaving out some very important facts, though. You're leaving out the times that he got hit, the tackles for a loss, the sacks, and the fact they didn't get the ball into the red zone one time. They never got the ball into the red zone one time, and essentially that was the difference. The Titans got there twice. They scored once. I mean, they were bad too, but from two bad teams playing a bad game.
Meanwhile,
the Broncos were worse.
The guy I didn't interview, I didn't see it in a single interview, but the guy I said they should hire is now 8-1, and he just went into Buffalo and won.
I know, that was a crazy ending to the game. In overtime, the Vikings were up 33-30. Yep. Josh Allen, I think it was second down. He was driving. They scored a touchdown. They win. There's a couple minutes to go. And Josh Allen throws another interception at the end zone goal line. He did that again. He's done that 3 games in a row. So Josh Allen has got they still scored 30 points. I mean, they should have won the game. But, yeah, Kevin O'Connell's got it rolling. That is a ridiculous win by the Vikings today. They shouldn't have even been in that game. So they came back. Josh Allen made some bad mistakes in that game. And then I don't know if you saw it, that they had him stopped at 4th and 1. The Bills had him stopped, and the Bills fumbled the ball when all they had to do was sit on it.
Yeah.
They fumbled it. They could have taken a safety and had a good chance just on defense to keep them away. That game was over. That game was over, and the Vikings won.
For people who don't think this job is work, everybody else in this house was watching Red Zone and watching that game, and I'm sitting over there having to watch Russell Wilson lead the drive. It's work. Days like today, it was work.
Oh, I feel you. James, thank you so much for hopping on with us. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
All right. My goodness. Lots of people in the comments putting out great stuff. One that actually really did stand out to me is Draymond Jones. People questioning, where was he today, Dmac? And that is honestly a fabulous question, because it seems like we really didn't see anything out of him. And Draymond
Jones had 4 tackles, 2 solo, and knocked a pass down. I don't know. Yeah, okay. I mean, that was Draymond Jones. I mean, they only had 1 sack. The only sack came from Cherokee Trail's own Jacob Martin, who just, is new on the scene. You got rid of Bradley Chubb, and you still stopped them on the run. And, yeah, they threw the ball okay. Listen, they only scored 17 points, Rachel. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You only allowed 17 points. I mean, the defense was all right. They weren't incredible, but they were all right.
Well, I think that they actually did play well. Because, one, you stopped Derrick Henry, who everyone thought was going to put up 300-plus yards or something crazy on him. But you're right, Dmac, is this team, if you're constantly out there, eventually you're going to get worn down. It's the inevitable. It happens. And that's exactly what happened when it came into the fourth quarter. This team had been out there, and they were worn down.
Yeah, it was, it was.
This is just insane to me. I can't believe we're here.
From what perspective can't you believe we're here? From the beginning of the year, from last week, from where do you can't believe we're here?
I'm saying from February when we heard about Russell Wilson coming to Denver, yada, yada, the hype that was built around this entire team, Nathaniel Hackett being at Nuggets games saying we're going to score a lot of points, Russell Wilson becoming the face of Denver. But also I said 2 weeks ago that I didn't think that the bye was coming at a good time because I just felt like it almost seemed like talk made it be like, oh, the Broncos have finally figured it out. Like, right, things are clicking. They're going on a bye. They're going to get well rested, whatever. It almost seemed like it went to their heads of like, we got this figured out. We did it. Now we just need to rest and move on when there were still so many other things that they needed to correct. And it just came back and it bit him in the face. And wow.
Yeah, there's no chance in the off season, that's what you're talking about, that you would ever assume this would be the worst Broncos offense ever. And that's what they are. So when you think of all the problems they've had with Tim Tebow, and you didn't like Pat Shurmur and Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock and Paxton Lynch, if you can think of every single offense that you thought was lousy for the Broncos ever, this is actually the worst in 50 years. And nobody...
Hold on 1 second. Jake Shapiro, he does a wonderful job on the back end. He just gave us this stat. The Broncos only scored 14 points per game in 1966. This would tie 1971's 4-9-1 team for the second worst offense in team history at 14.5 points per game.
Yeah. I don't want to be a stickler, but that is 50 years, and this is, I mean, okay. So what's Jake's bringing us something, to shoot for, to be the worst ever. It's like,
no, I think he's just confirming that.
Right. It's not bad enough to be the worst in 50 years. You may as well go for all time. There's room to grow.
But if you're the Walton Penner group, seriously, if you're the Walton Penner group, you're looking at this, you're like, we just came in here. This is disgraceful. Okay. This is the worst offense we've ever seen. You have to make a change, but what change is it that you make? Or are you going to listen to George Payton sit there and be like, you know what? There's a lot of injuries. Let us get things rolling for another year and we can do that. But you go back to what James just had to say, and he says, you can't give me injuries as an excuse. They were bad 3 weeks ago. They were bad 5 weeks ago.
Well, and I'm just checking out the Colts Raiders. Wow, the Colts lead the Raiders 10-0 right now in the second quarter. Holy cow. Wouldn't that be something with just Saturday if the Colts actually can win that game? Listen, I said a while ago I would have moved on from Hackett and Houghton and Stooks. I would just move on from those guys. I like Evero. I keep him.
So you said you don't make any changes now. Is that because you've given up hope?
No, well, I still would do the same thing. I would move on and I would hire Gary Kubiak to oversee things and have Clint Kubiak call the plays. And then I would beg Peyton Manning after I would try to buy Omaha Productions for $1 billion. I've said that multiple times. I would put him in charge of football, and I would let the chips fall where they may, but I would advocate strongly to acquire Sean Payton. If you don't want to do that, you may want to just try to get Sean Payton right now. But I have no idea why Sean Payton would want to do this. Like, why would Sean Payton want to give up a cushy TV job to be in charge of this.
Yeah.
I don't know why he would want to do that. Sean Payton could have stayed in football if he wanted to. Sean Payton, why would he get back into
Sean Payton left a bad team not to go to an even worse.
Yeah. I mean, what about this team would attract Sean Payton at this moment?
Yeah.
No, I would. I'll stick with that. Listen, they hired Jeff Saturday with the Colts. You can do anything you want. And I really do think listen. All right, I'll give you something that has to happen. Nathaniel Hackett has got to give up the play calling duties. Period.
Here's the thing. We talked about this on Halftime Chill. James made a really great point that Russell Wilson in all the other games had been going and talking to Nathaniel Hackett. Today, he wasn't doing that. He was going and talking to Clint Kubiak.
I saw that.
Why? Is it because he's the one calling the plays?
Okay. Do we know that for a fact?
We don't know that for a fact, but that's the only logical sense makes why he would be going to the quarterback coach and not the head coach. That's
a really good observation, and I noticed that too. And that would be something to figure out if that actually did happen, But why is Clint Kubiak down on the field then? I mean, you would need to, if you're calling the plays, you'd want to be up top. You'd want to have a better perspective. That's something good to follow up on. Who knows? I don't know. What are we talking about here? At 3-6, I was on the pregame show, and God bless everybody who thought the Broncos were still in the playoff mix and sort of had that mindset. So to me, I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually not that disappointed in today because I thought the big game was going to be against the Raiders and then Carolina. I mean, I always thought they were going to lose this game. I didn't think they were going to lose this game like this. I mean, they do find new ways to be terrible. I mean, they got shut out in the second half. They never got the ball in the red zone. Russell Wilson was, beaten to an absolute pulp. You're down so low on offensive linemen. I don't even know where they're going to get them from. I don't know where they're going to come from. So, and we have no idea what's wrong with Jerry Jeudy. That doesn't look great. We don't know what's wrong with Graham Glasgow or golly, Rachel. I mean, it is a disaster.
Yep.
It absolutely is a disaster.
Yep. And the talk will continue tomorrow morning. You can come hang out with myself, Dmac and James again as we've got coffee break, 10:30 a.m. That's going to do it for our post-game show. I just realized that this graphic says pregame live. That's how distraught I was when I made this graphic, everybody. So welcome into pregame live, I guess. Good thing we don't have to talk about this anymore until tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Dmac, Rachel Vihel, James Marilat. We'll see you all tomorrow morning. Bye, everybody.